Lying in isolation in ICU for 7 days, I thought about how wrong I was to remove my mask at the White House. Today, I think about how wrong it is to let mask wearing divide us, especially as we know now, you're twice as likely to get COVID-19 if you don't wear a mask. Wait, stop, wrong, just wrong. No, not the message. You should be wearing a mask. You should have always been wearing a mask. Let's listen again. Today, I think about how wrong it is to let mask wearing divide us, especially as we now know. Excuse me, now we know? This video aired on December 16th. The COVID death number that day, 3,611, putting the total death number as of that day at 307,642. Christy got COVID at the beginning of October. The total number of deaths in the beginning of October was almost 208,000. We knew then the dangers, and we knew then that wearing masks was the most effective measures in preventing the spread. You, as a public political figure, decided to repudiate scientific evidence at the expense of oh so many American lives, just so you could continue to sit on that jiggly, massive lap of Donald Trump. You seem to have turned a corner with this public message, conveniently at a moment in which Trump's days are ultimately numbered, but we'll thank you nonetheless for accepting your previous error in judgment. And yet, fuck you all the same. It was you and your Republican cronies that have exacerbated the situation into the atrocious and incredibly deadly circumstance in which we find ourselves. Soon after contracting the virus, you wrote in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, "I mistook the bubble of security around the president for a viral safe zone. I was wrong." Were you though? Because you kind of were still in a viral safe zone. Sure, you ended up catching the virus. I mean, how could you not? You're clearly going out of your way to do so. And yet, being the notable figure you are, i.e. politically rich and famous, you have priority access to healthcare. While you were hospitalized with COVID in Jersey, you were treated with a monoclonal antibody therapy, a promising drug that is in extremely short supply. And it's highly worth noting that this VIP treatment came after you turned down a chance to participate in a clinical trial of a separate antibody drug produced by Regeneron, just because you were unwilling to accept the possibility that you could be receiving a placebo. You were able to circumvent the rules to get access to experimental drugs outside of clinical trials. You, like Trump, managed to sidestep the FDA's clinical trial requirements. You were denied access to Regeneron and instead offered a spot in a randomized controlled trial, yet you didn't participate for fear of the possibility of receiving a placebo treatment. Yet you were given this investigational drug via expanded access. Clinical trials are crucial in mounting effective pandemic responses, yet you refused to do your part, just to ensure you'd get the correct treatment. You worked around the system, used your influence as a powerful politician to not only receive these unapproved drugs, but you fucked over a system whose mere existence is to help patients in devastating circumstances. And the fact that you're the good guy, the face of reason, within the Republican Party, well, it's utterly appalling and laughable. Still, we do appreciate you coming out publicly to defend mask wearing. I mean, all it took you was personal experience, and you must have had a pretty shit time. You could have just been listening to the scientists all along. But, I mean, at least in the end, you did the right thing. Which is, I guess, more than you can say about all the other cronies. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson, after having caught and recovered from the coronavirus, said his damn condition improved after President Trump intervened on his behalf. He wrote on Facebook, "President Trump was following my condition and cleared me for the monoclonal antibody therapy he previously received, which I am convinced saved my life." He's just one of a handful of people able to access Regeneron's therapeutic before the FDA granted the drug emergency use authorization last month. Giuliani also received the treatment. So these special treatments are largely unattainable to the rest of the population. And to whom are these special treatments given to? Oh, just the very people who've been fucking us all along. The federal government has given up just about any effort, assuming they made any in the first place, to control this pandemic. They've turned the notion of wearing a mask into a point of political division. Instead of a precautionary measure, it's now a political statement. They've gone out of their way to completely undermine mask wearing. So these bastards have made it a point to not follow public health measures. They've gotten themselves infected, and then they've been given access to these therapies that most Americans don't have. And one of the main reasons most of us don't have them is that the government didn't do an Operation Warp Speed for therapeutics, like they should have. So now these lucky pricks are the only ones with access to this relatively limited supply of therapies. Then they get better, then they go about their lives, claiming the notion that COVID isn't that big a deal. Of course it's not that big a deal. Not if you have the access to world-class therapies that they have. Fucking bunch of hypocritical bullshit mother...